Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, guys, you saw that right. I'm at the airport. So yeah, it's only been about a day and a half since we got home from the Sturgis rally, and I'm on the move again. I'm gonna jump on a plane. We're gonna take a ride. I'll give you the details in just a little bit. Well, guys, I had a little bit of a scare. So I get to the airport 1 minute past the check-in time, and I thought Katie had checked me in online on the drive here. Turns out she did not. So I get here, the desk is closed. They're saying it's too late to check in and that I cannot board without a boarding pass. And there was nobody there to give me my boarding pass. Luckily, with the help from a TSA agent, she was able to go in the back and get somebody who then authorized it. And then I ran up to security, and another United Airlines employee met me up there with my boarding passes. But it was scary for a second. Thought it wasn't gonna make my flight. Alright guys, here's my flight. Supposed to leave at 7 a.m. But now, 7:45, it's a delayed flight. All right, guys, so I just landed in O'Hare Airport here in Chicago. Now you might be asking, why Chicago? Alright guys, so no, I'm not staying in Chicago. I'm boarding another flight. Can't tell you yet where I'm going, but I ran into, what was your name again? Larry. Hey, but I ran into Larry. He drives the Vance & Hines truck, so he travels the rallies with us. So we're just standing next to each other in the airport, and he walked up and said hi. Well guys, most of you have probably figured it out already. I am back in Rapid City, South Dakota. You may ask, why am I back in Rapid City, South Dakota? Well, do you guys remember this moment about a year ago? Well, yeah, it's been a year, and the sport coach has still been sitting here on the property. And while we were here for the rally this year, Cassie and her husband and her son stayed in it. But now it's time to get the thing home. You know, Stan, the gentleman I bought it from, he didn't expect it to sit here for a year. I didn't expect it to sit here for a year, but there it is, guys. We're back to get it, and we are going to drive this all the way back to North Carolina. Now, I thought it was pretty ironic running into Larry at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. He was coming back from Indiana. I guess he drove one of the Vance & Hines trucks out someplace and parked it, and then he was flying back to get the other one to take it out to California. So I'm just standing there in the airport waiting for my connecting flight to board, and he walks up to me and goes, "Where's your next show?" And of course we got to talking. I saw the shirt, assumed that he worked for Vance & Hines, and yeah, we got along pretty well. So when we boarded the plane to come out to Rapid City, we were separated, but we got off the plane, we hung out for a little bit, we shared the shuttle coming from the airport back over here, because he just had to go over here to the Harley dealer and pick up the other Vance & Hines truck. Anyway, Larry, thanks for watching the channel, and it was really nice meeting you. Really cool guy. Lots of really cool trucker stories that we talked about. And there he goes. See, he was here to pick up a truck too, just like I am. All right, so how many of you guys remember the video from last year when I got this thing? And those of you that are new to the channel, yeah, we bought it a year ago. It is a 1983 GMC Sport Coach. So there was only a short period of time there where General Motors actually built their own motorhomes from the ground up. It wasn't like they supplied the chassis in Winnebago where somebody else built the coach on top of it. They did everything in-house from the ground up, interiors, everything, the whole 9 yards. Didn't last real long. I think it was from like 1973 to 1978 or something like that. I'm sorry, 1973 to 1988, somewhere in that area. But anyway, just really cool styling on this thing. I saw it last year and I fell in love with it. Just, I mean, things like the shape of the taillights, the general shape of the body. Now, I know it's old and it's ugly and it's kind of yellowy looking. I've got plans for it, and it's going to be a really cool coach when it's all said and done. But first, we got to get this thing home. All right, guys, so this Sport Coach has been sitting here for at least 2 years. It's all in all, it's in really good shape, but we are gonna do this kind of roadkill style. We're gonna get in this thing and we're gonna drive it back to North Carolina, and we're gonna hope that we make it. I don't know, part of me hopes that we don't make it. You know, if we have some trouble along the way, it could make for some good YouTube videos. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Roadkill episodes back in the days when they were free to watch on YouTube before Motor Trend made it a subscription-based thing. But it was a really cool show. David Freiberger and Mike Finnegan just building cars out of junkyards and piecing things together, or just picking up stuff that they weren't familiar with and driving it across the country for some kind of an event. And it was always cool, exciting episodes. Well, guys, basically that's what we're going to do here. I don't know a whole lot of history on this. However, Stan, the gentleman I bought it from, is going to meet me over here this afternoon when he gets off work. He's going to give me a quick rundown of what works, what doesn't work, and how certain things operate. I'm going to run it across the street to the Pilot and ask the guys there if they'll top off the tires with air for me. It's down about a quart of oil, but I checked all the fluids before we left to take Goliath home to North Carolina, and it looks like all the fluids are in really good shape, like it had just been serviced before it was parked, and I will try to confirm that with Stan when he gets here later. But he did say it does have an occasional overheating problem, that it's intermittent. It doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. Stan said that basically there's a valve in there that allows extra coolant to flow through the engine when it's needed. He says it's common on 454s. Now, I know my way around a 454 big block. Yeah, guys, 454 big block. And I'm not familiar with that system, but it could just be something like a heater control valve or something that's hanging up once in a while. But until it screws up, I don't have a way of diagnosing it, because when it's working fine. So basically, I'm going to gather some things together. We're going to get this thing ready for the road, and either tonight or tomorrow morning, we're going to jump on the highway. We're going to head home. Oh yeah, and the battery was dead in it too the other day, so I put it on charge. Like I said, I gave it a quick once over before we went home to North Carolina, but at this point, it's just get in it and go. Well, guys, it's about 7:15, and Stan came by. We went over everything. I think I got a good handle on what we're going to be up against. I drove it around a little bit. I probably put 10 or 12 miles on it. Drove it to the Pilot, got it all topped off with fuel, put a quart of oil in it, got some coolant for it, aired up all the tires, drove it to Walmart, did some shopping. So it's pretty much ready to go first thing in the morning. Now, I was actually, for a little bit there, around 5, I was thinking I was going to leave tonight and at least get 100 miles or so in and then stop. I still don't have any headlights, so I cannot drive at night. But by the time I get done shopping, see that sun's getting low. And at this point in South Dakota, we're limited on where we can safely and comfortably stop for the night. So I didn't want to end up having to force myself into like an off ramp or something like that just because I couldn't see where I was going. So I was like, you know what, we're just going to wait. Plus, the dash on this thing is absolutely filthy. So while I was at Walmart, I bought some cleaning supplies so I can clean it a little bit just because just touching it, I'm getting filthy. And I got to do something about the driver's seat. It's a full power seat. It's a nice big plush seat. It should be comfortable, but it's not. And for some reason, there's no power. I can't get the switches to work on the driver's seat. Passenger seat works fine, but the seat's low, like as low as it can get, and it's tilted forward just a little bit. So I'm driving down the road. I'm kind of scrunched up against the pedals. My knees are bent too much. I'm not comfortable, and I feel like I want to slide out of the seat constantly. And that's going to get really annoying over 1,500 miles. It was annoying over 10 or 12 miles. So I'm going to see if I can't fix some of that tonight and then get it cleaned up and get a good night's sleep. And then we're going to hit the road first thing in the morning. We'll see you then. I know it's getting dark, but just see how nasty the dash is. It's even hard to read the gauges. It's so dirty. Steering wheel all the way across, just terrible. So just grab some Armor All cleaning wipes. They're not doing a great job, but they're making a little bit of a difference. All right, guys, it is about 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and we were up at the Pilot gas station. I think we got a pretty good night's sleep. A couple of issues we had this morning, though, was, I noticed it last night when I drove around. Got kind of a sewage smell towards the back of the coach. Was not pleasant. When I got back to where I parked last night, I went messing with some of the breaker switches and just, trying to familiarize myself with this unit. And I knelt down in something wet. It turns out that the black sewage tank is above the floor in the bathroom, not under with the chassis. Well, apparently there is a slight leak in it. And I noticed that when I drive around and it sloshes, it smells bad. When it sits and airs out, the smell kind of goes away. So this morning I drove over here to the Pilot to get my coffee and brush my teeth and so on and so forth. I could smell it again. So I decided to go ahead and dump the tank. There's no water supply here, so there's no way to really flush it, but I at least got rid of the volume that's in there, so hopefully it won't slosh around. Maybe we can minimize that smell going down the road. I still was not able to fix the driver's seat situation. It's still awkward, but it is drivable. I'm just not going to like it. So my plan today is I'm hopefully going to call my friend Ron. You guys have seen Ron before. And he just lives over in Minnesota, which is about 600 miles away, give or take. If I can get over to his house, maybe spend the night there, hang out with him for a little bit, I can probably use some of his tools to, take the seat apart and find out why I don't have any power to the seat. That way I can adjust it to where I'll be a little bit more comfortable, because 1,500 miles riding like that is not going to be good. But other than that, teeth are brushed, coffee's in the cup, we're ready to roll out. And now that it's daylight, you guys can see the dash being clean is so much better. So much better. Well, guys, not even 50 miles in, and we have problems. All right, guys, this is definitely not a good thing. We It started surging like it ran out of fuel, but it happened to be right at the big uphill grade. So I don't have much room for shoulder here. As you can see there, I've got the guard fence there to keep you out of the hills. And I am right on the white line and cars coming up. So I gotta see if I can figure this out without getting run over. Well guys, the best I can tell, we just ran out of gas. But that doesn't make any sense to me because I topped off both of the fuel tanks before we left and we've only gone about 50 miles or so. Now what's confusing me a little bit is on the dash, I have a switch that says main and auxiliary. Auxiliary is up, main is down. But there's also a middle position that I don't know what it does. And if I put it down onto the main tank, it shows an empty tank of fuel. If it's in the middle or the auxiliary position, it reads a full tank of fuel in both cases. Now on the outside, there's a fuel tank that I filled up right there, and I know that I put 21 gallons in that tank. And then back here towards the rear, there's another fuel fill, and I only got about 3 gallons in there, but it was full all the way to the neck. Now that rear one feeds into this right here, which looks to me like it's got to be at least a 30 or 35 gallon tank, maybe more. And here you can see there's a frame mounted fuel pump. Now when I turn the key on, that pump is running like crazy and it's really noisy because there's no fuel in it. And you can tell that that tank is completely empty. Now moving forward a little bit, you see there's another fuel pump right here, which I believe feeds fuel from the front tank, and it goes to this manifold system here. And I think there's still fuel in the front tank. So I'm wondering if that pump back there just pumped all the fuel into the front tank as the front tank was being used. But I'm not sure how to get the fuel from the front tank to the engine now. All right guys, and to top it all off, when I stopped here, the first thing I did is immediately try to restart the truck, and the battery was weak. It would barely turn over. Now I've got a switch on the dash where I can take the house batteries and link it while you're holding the switch, and then I was able to get it to, you know, kind of turn over. It would fire up and then stall right back out. Classic signs of being out of fuel. But now I'm curious on why the main starter battery isn't working either after we've drive 50 miles. And the gauge on the dash shows that it should be charging plenty. All right guys, trying to get a better understanding of this, I came down with a test light, and we've got this relay here, and this wire here, we've got power with the key, and then we got these 2 wires here. The black one goes out to the rear fuel pump, the yellow one goes right to this fuel pump right here. And this fuel pump does not activate. If I switch these wires where I know I've got power to the rear fuel pump because it's running, I still cannot get this pump to activate. I checked voltage right here going in, and I've got voltage. It's got a good chassis ground, so there's no reason it shouldn't work. So I've determined that this fuel pump is bad. And unfortunately, that's the one that draws fuel out of the tank that I actually have fuel in. So what I'd like to do is get the fuel pump from the rear and move it up here so that I can at least get this thing off of the road, but I've got no tools. And I still don't fully understand this valving system here. You know, I can see where this hose comes from this pump into the valve. This one here goes back up to the engine. And then one of these here is coming from the rear fuel tank, but there's still a couple other hoses. Not sure exactly where they go to or what they do. I think part of it is the transfer. But there's only one wire going to this, so maybe it's chassis grounded, but no matter what, I've got no power to that wire no matter what I do. So just not sure what it's supposed to actually do and how it does it. Well guys, I had to get creative, and I got a little bit lucky too. So the fuel pump that was on the rear of the vehicle only had one bolt holding it on. And I was able to wiggle it back and forth, and I broke that bolt free enough that I could spin the nut and washer off the backside by hand. And then I used a dime, look at that, a dime to unscrew the fuel lines, and it worked. So wiring wise though, I just had to break the wires at the connections. So I just wiggled it back and forth till we broke through the copper. So now I'm gonna go down and see if I can get this one wired in place to the bad one and see if I can get fuel to transfer to the engine from that front tank. Hopefully it works. Well guys, as crude as it may be, it's there, it's hooked up, it's working. I couldn't get the valving to work right to get the fuel to get up to the engine, so I just bypassed the whole valve. So this pump is drawing fuel from the front tank, and I believe going straight to the engine. So let's go find out if it works. And that's a negative, Houston. I gotta double check and make sure that the line I routed is indeed the one going to the engine. It's the only one I saw going forward, but it disappears and it's hard to track. But I would think the only one running forward, it would have to be the one going to the engine. But I've got no fuel at the engine still, even though the fuel pump is running. And I did prime the system back at the pump. So I left the line undone, I powered it up. It took a little while for the pump to draw fuel, and then it spit out some pretty bad fuel at first, and then it ran clean. I shut it off, hooked up to the system, and then I tried playing to figure out, you know, the switch to get it to go to the engine on its own. It didn't work. I figured out how to pump it back to the back tank, which that hose is disconnected now because I don't have the fuel pump in line. So I did figure out how to pump it to the rear tank. Just doesn't do me any good because now there's not a fuel pump on the rear tank. So the idea was just to bypass the whole system and go straight from this tank to the engine. That's not working. We got to figure out why. All right, guys, I think I may have figured it out. I did not have it hooked to the fuel line going to the engine. Turns out that was a return line back to the tank. So all I was doing was recirculating fuel back to the tank. I disconnected the fuel line at the mechanical fuel pump that's still on the engine. So apparently the electric pumps are just to supply the mechanical pump, and then the mechanical pump takes over from there. I disconnected that line, initiated power to the fuel pump, nothing happened. Traced the line back, and sure enough, I had them mixed up. The way they disappear up into the chassis, it's really hard to trace. Anyway, a little switcheroo back here at the distribution spot, and turned the key back on, and sure enough, I primed that front line, got fuel to the fuel pump. So now I've just remade that connection, again, using nothing but a dime as a tool. So now we're gonna try one more time to start the truck. It may take a few minutes for that mechanical pump to pump up to the engine, but let's cross our fingers and let's hope that this works. Ooh, she's choking. All right, guys, she's running. All right, let's see if we can get this thing off of the interstate. All right, guys, here goes nothing. Checking for traffic. Well, guys, we pulled off at exit 192, so we're only about 150 miles into our trip, and the truck has been, or the coach, it's been running pretty good, but I gotta admit, I'm still confused on a couple of things. So yesterday, let's rehash. Yesterday, I stopped and I filled the truck up, put $100 worth in. It was a total of like 23 gallons or something like that. I put 21 gallons in that front tank. The other 3 or 4 gallons I put in the rear tank, and they were right to the top. Now I can clearly see that this fill goes straight into that tank. There's no place that it's going. After we had the incident on the side of the road here, obviously I switched and I was drawing fuel off of the front tank because the rear tank was empty. Keep in mind, it was full and it looks like a huge tank, but I don't think it was full. I'll get to that in a minute. So after we did our roadside repair, we've only gone about another 100 miles. give or take. And remember, I put 21 gallons in it yesterday. So in my head, I was doing the math. I was like, well, let's just assume I only get 5 miles of the gallon. I better not try to go too much more than 100 miles, knowing that I've only got 20 or 21 gallons in that tank. Now, that was assuming that nothing had taken from that tank in that little bit of driving I did last night and until we had our fuel issue this morning. So anyway, I pull off of the exit here at 192. I go to the Conoco across the street to get gas because it's cheaper there than it is here at the Pilot. But Pilot's got better coffee, so that's why I'm over here now. So I top it off, and I ended up putting 36 gallons in that front tank. So how did I burn up 36 gallons in 100 miles? I don't know, unless some of it got used before that. But then what happened to the fuel that was back here yesterday? So now we don't have a fuel pump back here, so we shouldn't be drawing. But I went ahead and added fuel to this tank anyways, just because I was curious. And I was able to fit 14 gallons in here. You look at the size of that tank, it's obviously bigger than 14 gallons. Let's go underneath and I'll show you. So that tank will definitely hold more than 14 gallons, but I'm looking, the fill tube, right? The way it kind of comes down and then it goes up and then it levels off and then it drops back into the tank. But look, it goes into the tank at the midway point. So I can see how putting 15 or 16 gallons in there would make it appear full when it's actually not. This is a terrible design. The fuel inlet should be at the top of the tank no matter what. And we shouldn't have this sump here. So you can see the clearance comes down here, but then it goes right back up. So this should actually hang down further. So all in all, it's just a terrible design. This fuel inlet to the tank should have gone up over the frame right to there and into the top of the tank, but it didn't. So as far as I can tell, this is just the way it was designed originally, and it's just a stupid design. So there's no way that this rear tank is full, but I'm pretty confident that the top one is full because that one goes right to the top and I could literally see the level in the top of the tank as it came out here. So there should be at least 36 gallons in there, maybe more, because I just put 36 in and I wasn't out of gas when I got here, but I don't know how much more than that it held. All right, guys, I'm not going to pretend to fully understand, but now that I've topped off the fuel with the switch in the down position, which says main, now it's showing I have a full tank. If I flip it to the middle, see it moves up to over full. Oh, there's a glare there. All right, that's middle. That's main. It drops down to full. Takes a few minutes. When I go to middle, you see it jumps up to over full. When I go up to auxiliary, it's way up to over full. So coupled with being confused on the actual capacity and not being able to trust the fuel gauges inside, because I have no idea what position is reading what tank, and they're all reading full. Two were reading full, even one was empty. Now the other one, I put 36 gallons in, but the other two still read full. Now the third one shows full, but I don't know which tank it's reading off of, so I just don't know. I may hit the Napa down the road here and buy a couple gas cans, top them off just in case, so that if something happens and I miscalculate and I run out of gas, I can always just fill this front tank and know that I can hopefully get to an exit. I might even buy another one of those Napa fuel pumps that's on here and put it back in the back again where it was. That way, worst case scenario, I can tap into that 14 gallons that I just put in there and run it to the engine, even if I have to crawl underneath and do some hosing. Hose rearranging. Yeah, we'll call it hose rearranging. Hosing sounds better. So we can do some hosing and make it all work. But yeah, we'll see. But for now, I'm gonna go inside and get some coffee. All right, guys, so I went inside, used the restroom, got some coffee, got back out here, and there is an auto parts store down the ways. It's not a Napa like I thought it was, but I knew there was something here because Katie and I actually broke down at this exit years and years ago. I want to say back in 2015, 2016, I'm not sure. It was a long time ago. I had a wheel bearing failure on the trailer, and luckily there was a parts store in town. I was able to get everything I needed to fix it. So I'm going to run over there and see if they've got a fuel pump and maybe a couple gas cans. But while I was inside using the restroom, I actually felt really, really shaky and not feeling so good. And then I realized that, you know, it's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon here now, No, I'm sorry, 3 o'clock here now, but we did just cross the time zone, so we lost an hour, so it would essentially be 2 based on the time that I woke up this morning. And I haven't eaten since noon yesterday. So yeah, it's been a good 26, 27 hours or so since I've had a real meal. So I decided to grab some. Let me eat this real quick. We'll run over to the parts store and see if they can get what we need. All right, guys, well, they did not have an inline fuel pump that would work, nor did they have any decent toolkits there, but I did get 2 cans of gas, so at least there's an extra 10 gallons on reserve just in case we go too far and run out of fuel. Part of me wants to see how far to go in the tank now. Just curious.
One is better. Another one for the truck. Oh, watch the mirror.
Well, guys, we're on the side of the road again. So we've only gone about 110 miles since I got gas, and it did the same thing. It sounds like it ran out of fuel. Figures it did it as soon as I passed the rest area. I'd already passed the entrance, so at least I'm here in the acceleration ramp lane, so I'm not right on the highway. All right, guys, so I'm laying underneath the back end because I noticed I could smell fuel as well. And you see, the second I stopped, I get out, and that is there. And if you look up on the bottom of the coach, you can see where fuel has sprayed out under here. Now, that's where the pump used to be, but there's no pump there. So I'm not sure how fuel is coming out of here. So did we pump it all out going down the road? Well, I have a theory, and I don't know if I'm right. The mechanical fuel pump, which is now being supplied by the electric fuel pump, it has a return line on it. And I'm willing to bet that the return line from that mechanical fuel pump is going to the rear tank. So while we're going down the road, the fuel that the engine doesn't use is being recirculated back to the rear tank, because that rear tank feels really full right now. And I bet you it overflowed and it's pushing it out where I used to have the fuel pump connected that I never blocked off. So that would explain why we went through so much fuel so fast, and maybe why we couldn't fit very much more in there when I got fuel. Just a theory. You know what? Let me check and see how full this rear tank is. All right, guys, I've been fighting with it for about half an hour, and I can't figure out how the fuel was getting returned to that back tank or whatever. So for right now, because weather's not looking good, sun's going down, I'm only about 10-15 miles from Mitchell. I'm going to take our spare gas, I'm going to dump it in there and hope that that's enough to get me to Mitchell. At least that way I'm off of the highway. I've got resources. I considered taking the fuel pump back off, hooking it back to the rear tank, pumping the front tank full again, but again, the hosing there is a little bit confusing. So right now I just want to get it off the highway, and then we'll figure something else out. All right, guys, so we're going down the road again, and I know that in that last clip I said 10 or 15 miles. I am now 20 miles from Mitchell. I guess I was actually about 30. Hopefully that fuel's enough to get us there. If not, I'm gonna have to switch that pump around and just refill the gas cans maybe, and then refill this tank. So I don't know, fingers crossed. All right, guys, and with about 11 miles left to go, it narrows down to 1 lane. I sure hope that it doesn't run out of gas now, because I won't have any room to get over unless I go to the median, and then I'll be right there working on the side of the road with the cars whizzing by. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Guys, this sucks. Exit 330. I've only got to get to 332, and I can feel it chugging. It's getting ready to run out of fuel. I don't know if I'll make it to the exit or not. I might make it to this one. I'm not going to make it to the one I wanted. All right, made it off the exit. It says there's a gas station 0.7 miles. Trying to make it, just trying. Well guys, I didn't make it, but at least I'm not on the interstate. So actually, I did make it. I pulled into that gas station and it was under construction and it was the wrong side of the fuel pumps. And I was like, you know what, I'm only a couple of blocks from the truck stop. So I made the right, kind of coming through town, and it was doing okay. And then it just quit right here. So I'm just gonna do what I can do and get it to the truck stop. At least I'm not on the side of the interstate. Hi guys, as much of a pain in the butt as it was, I removed the fuel pump that I had earlier installed for the front tank, moved it to the rear tank again, pumped out the fuel from the rear tank into the gas cans, and then moved the fuel pump back to the front tank, wired it back in, pumped it back in, poured the fuel from the gas cans into the front tank. Now, let's see if we can get her a couple more blocks down the road, and then we'll call it the night probably. All right guys, we are literally just a couple of blocks away from truck stop. It's not where I wanted to end my night, but given the circumstances, it's the best option. It's the same truck stop that we stop at Mitchell all the time. We're literally like 3 blocks away. So hopefully we can make it there. And I don't know, just make it there. All right guys, made it to the truck stop. On the way in, I passed 3 auto parts stores, all only about 2 blocks away. Walking distance if necessary. But I don't think I'm gonna mess with it anymore tonight. I really want to shower. I'm covered in gasoline and I spent more time under the truck today, I think, than I did in the truck. So really looking forward to a shower. Might even go inside Marlin's and have a bite to eat because I'm hungry. Try to research this system a little bit because I'm still a little confused on how the fuel is getting back to the back tank or where it's going. So maybe what I'll do tomorrow is just completely isolate. I'll take the return line from the fuel pump and route it back to this first fuel tank. That way, no matter what, it only runs on one fuel tank. Or I may go buy another pump and tie the two together and make it where I can pump from the back fuel tank at least to the front fuel tank, even though the front fuel tank will be the primary at that point. But at least that way, if I have fuel in the back and I run out, I can pump fuel from there to here and hopefully be able to get more than 85 or 90 miles before I have to stop and get gas every time, and hopefully not be dumping fuel out going down the road as well. I gotta fix it, but it's 8 o'clock at night, everything's closing, the sun's going down. As it is, I can't hardly see anything underneath there. So we're done for the night. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. But as far as road killing it, we definitely got the adventure we wanted, didn't we? This has not been easy. And you know, with Roadkill, they at least had a camera crew, they had support vehicles most times. We didn't have any of that. I didn't even have any tools with me. All of these repairs today I did, all I had was a dime. You can see I've even chewed up the edges of the dime pretty bad. But that dime has got us everywhere we needed to go. I don't even have a screwdriver. I'm gonna rectify that tomorrow because this was a pain in the butt doing everything with a dime to unscrew clamps. So good thing I grew up watching MacGyver when I was a kid. Good thing. Either way guys, Roadkill ain't got nothing on what we've done because we did it with less than they did. And you know, the thing is, this has been enough footage to make a whole video. And the sad thing is, I'm only Mitchell, South Dakota. I've got a long ways to go still. So anyway, tomorrow we're gonna try to fix this and then maybe the rest of the trip goes smooth. Maybe. But for now, we're done for the night. So we'll see you guys in the morning.